Someone cuts you off in traffic. Your blood boils. A co-worker takes credit for your work. Rage floods your system. Your partner says something thoughtless. Anger consumes your mind for hours. Here's the brutal truth. You're giving strangers and circumstance complete control over your emotional state. You're a puppet, and everyone else is pulling the strings. The ancient Stoics lived in one of the most brutal eras in human history. Betrayal meant death. Insults were common. Injustice was the norm. Yet they mastered something we've forgotten, the art of remaining completely unshakable. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. He dealt with assassination attempts, political betrayal, and constant manipulation. Yet he maintained inner peace that most modern men can't achieve on a peaceful Sunday morning. How? Not through luck or circumstance. Through a specific mental framework that made anger impossible. Today you're learning that exact framework. Let me be clear. This isn't about suppressing emotions or becoming some cold, robotic version of yourself. This is about developing such complete mastery over your internal state that external chaos can't touch you. This is real power, the kind emperors envied. Here's where most men get anger completely wrong. They think anger is something that happens to them. Someone does something, and anger is the automatic result. Wrong. Epictetus destroyed this illusion 2,000 years ago with one simple principle. There are things you control and things you don't. You control your thoughts, your interpretations, your responses, your character. You don't control other people's actions, their words, their choices, their opinions. Every single time you get angry, you're trying to control something outside your control. You want traffic to move faster. You want that person to be polite. You want reality to match your expectations. But reality doesn't care about your expectations. Think about this. You don't get angry at rain for being wet. You don't rage at winter for being cold. Why? Because you accept their nature. People are no different. They act according to their nature, their understanding, their character level. Getting angry at someone for being rude is like being angry at a dog for barking. The dog is doing what dogs do. The rude person is doing what people with poor character do. Here's the shift that changes everything. When you truly accept that you cannot control others, anger becomes illogical. It's like being mad at gravity for making things fall. Now I know what you're thinking. So I just accept bad behavior. I let people walk all over me? Absolutely not. This is where most people misunderstand Stoicism. You can set boundaries without anger. You can remove yourself from toxic situations without rage. You can take appropriate action without internal turmoil. The difference is this. The angry man reacts. The Stoic responds. Reaction is unconscious, emotional, and usually makes things worse. Response is conscious, calculated, and effective. Marcus Aurelius would face men trying to destroy him. He didn't react with rage. He responded with strategy. That's why he won. Let's go deeper into why people trigger you. Someone insults you. Anger rises. But here's what's really happening. You're not angry at their words. You're angry at what those words mean about your self-image. If someone calls you stupid and you know you're intelligent, you laugh it off. No anger. Why? Because the insult doesn't threaten your self-perception. But if that same insult hits an insecurity, rage. Because now your fragile self-image is under attack. Seneca understood this. He wrote that a secure person cannot be insulted. The insult just bounces off because there's no insecurity for it to hook into. This is why inner work is everything. When you've done the deep work of knowing yourself, accepting your flaws and building real self-worth, external opinions lose their power. You become uninsultable, untouchable, free. Here's a practice that eliminates 90% of anger instantly. Catch the judgment. You don't get angry at events. You get angry at your interpretation of events. Someone cuts you off in traffic. The event is neutral, but your mind immediately judges, that person is disrespecting me, they think they're more important, they're a terrible driver. Those judgments create anger, not the event itself. What if they're rushing to the hospital? What if they didn't see you? What if they're a new driver who made an honest mistake? Same event, different judgment, no anger. The Stoics called this testing your impressions. Before you accept any initial interpretation, pause and ask, is this the only way to see this situation? Usually it's not, and that pause is where your power lives. Let me tell you something that will change how you see conflict forever. Anger always hurts you more than the person you're angry at. Seneca called anger temporary madness. It clouds your judgment, poisons your peace, damages your health, and makes you do things you regret. Meanwhile, the person who wronged you, they're probably going about their day completely unbothered. You're punishing yourself for someone else's actions. You're giving them free rent in your head. You're allowing their behavior to control your emotional state. That's not strength, that's slavery. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. Every moment you spend angry is a moment you're not building, growing, or moving forward. The Stoics were intensely practical. They understood that emotional energy is limited. Wasting it on anger means you have less for what matters. Think about the most successful men you know. How often are they consumed by anger over minor slights? Almost never. Why? Because they're too busy building something meaningful. Their energy goes toward creation, not destruction. Toward progress, not revenge. Toward their mission, not their ego. Marcus Aurelius practiced something called the view from above. When something would normally trigger anger, he'd zoom out. He'd imagine himself from space, seeing Earth as a tiny dot. His problems, microscopic. His ego, invisible. His conflicts, meaningless in the scope of eternity. This isn't nihilism, it's perspective. That rude cashier who just triggered you? In 100 years, neither of you will exist. In the scope of the universe, this moment is infinitely small. Why give it power over your peace? This perspective doesn't mean nothing matters. It means you save your emotional energy for what actually does matter. Your family, your mission, your growth, your character. Not whether some stranger was polite to you at the grocery store. Here's where this gets really practical. You need a system for when anger starts to rise. First, pause. Just 3 seconds. In that pause, you create space between stimulus and response. That space is your power. Second, identify what you're trying to control that you can't control. Almost always, anger comes from this futile attempt. Third, shift to what you can control, your response. What's the wise action here? What would serve your highest good? Fourth, if needed, take action without anger. Set the boundary, remove yourself, address the behavior, but do it from a place of calm strength, not reactive emotion. This sounds simple, but it's revolutionary. Most people skip straight from stimulus to reaction. This process inserts consciousness into that gap. Let's talk about something crucial: developing compassion without becoming a doormat. When you understand that everyone is dealing with their own struggles, limitations, and traumas, anger becomes harder to maintain. The aggressive driver might be under crushing stress. The rude colleague might be dealing with a personal crisis. The betraying friend might be acting from deep insecurity. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it explains it, and explanation creates understanding, which dissolves anger. You can still set boundaries, you can still protect yourself, you can still remove toxic people from your life, but you do it from wisdom, not rage, from strength, not weakness, from choice, not reaction. Here's what nobody tells you about anger. It's often just fear in disguise. Fear of being disrespected, fear of losing control, fear of being seen as weak, fear of your expectations not being met. When you address the underlying fear, the anger often disappears. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of right now? What's being threatened? My ego, my self-image, my expectations? Usually the answer reveals that anger is protecting something that doesn't need protection. Every morning, the Stoics would prepare mentally for the day ahead. Marcus Aurelius would remind himself, "Today I will meet people who are rude, ungrateful, and dishonest." Not because he was pessimistic, because he was realistic. When you expect that some people will act poorly, you're never surprised when they do. And surprise is what triggers most anger. You expected respect but got rudeness. You expected honesty but got lies. You expected competence but got incompetence. The gap between expectation and reality creates suffering. Close that gap by adjusting expectations, and suffering disappears. Here's the ultimate test. Can you be wronged without seeking revenge? Can you be insulted without needing to retaliate? Can you be betrayed without becoming bitter? This is mastery, not weakness. Weakness is being controlled by your emotions. Strength is controlling them. The man who must respond to every slight is a slave to others' opinions. The man who can let things go is free. This doesn't mean allowing people to abuse you. It means choosing your battles with wisdom. It means recognizing that some things deserve no response, because responding gives them power they don't deserve. Most conflicts in life are beneath you, not because you're better than anyone, but because engaging with them pulls you down from your purpose. Let me be brutally honest. This isn't easy. Even Marcus Aurelius struggled with anger his entire life. That's why he wrote the Meditations, daily reminders to himself about these principles. But here's what I promise. Every time you practice these principles, you get stronger. Every time you choose response over reaction, you build your inner citadel. Over time, things that used to enrage you barely register. People who used to control your emotions lose their power. Situations that used to ruin your day become minor inconveniences. You become unshakable. Not because nothing bothers you, but because you've trained yourself to remain centered regardless of external chaos. This is the Stoic promise, complete inner freedom. The kind of freedom that can never be taken away because it doesn't depend on external circumstances. Your boss can't disturb it, traffic can't touch it, critics can't destroy it, because it lives inside you, in a place they can't reach. This is real power, the kind that built empires and changed history. And it starts with a simple choice. The next time something triggers anger, pause. Just 3 seconds. In that pause, ask, is this worth disturbing my peace? Usually, the answer is no. If you're ready to develop this unshakable inner peace, to become the kind of man who remains calm when everyone else is losing their minds, comment below, I am unshakable. Remember, the most powerful men in history weren't those who controlled others. They were those who mastered themselves so completely that external chaos couldn't touch their inner peace. Your empire begins within. Start building it today.